healthy, guilt-free. Kale is the main ingredient. Hello, all my messy friends out there, and happy Monday to you. Today we are hanging out in the kitchen, getting ready to prepare a week's worth of delicious, nutritious, and far superior version of cashew kale salad that is commonly found in the grocery store deli. I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with this handy, nutritional, healthy option for ready-made food that we can pick up at the grocery store deli along with the rest of our groceries for the week. Scoop it up as we wish throughout the work week for a quick and healthy, guilt-free lunch. But upon closer inspection, if you look at the list of ingredients, you'll see a ton of not even food listed. Soybean oil, Dijon mustard, salt, eggs, white wine, citric acid, sugar water, whole eggs, vinegar, dried egg yolks, spices, salt, red pepper sauce, broccoli, cabbage, cashews, carrots, red onions, apricots, sulfur dioxide. And you can see that there are usually little chunks of raisins inside. In the nutrition information for this healthy treat that you can get ready-made from the deli, you're looking at 1 cup, this is about 1 cup, 200 calories, of which you're getting 21% of your daily value of fat. So 1/5 of all the fat you can eat in a day in your kale salad. You're not doing too bad. 3% cholesterol, 7% sodium, 4% carbs, 7% fiber, so that's nice. 3 grams of added sugar, 6% of your daily value of added sugar. You don't need that much artificial sugar, added sugar in your lunch. 3 grams of protein. And along with that, for vitamins and minerals, you're getting 6% iron, 4% calcium, and 6% potassium. So on the surface, it's not that bad. It's an acceptable, respectable thing to eat. But I have concocted my own dupe of this cashew kale salad. And here we have fresh kale, broccoli. Instead of adding sugared dried fruits like raisins and apricots, we're adding red beets to give the sweetness. Shredded carrots, they also add sweetness, and cashews. There is a light sauce made of honey, mustard, and lemon juice. So there is a little bit of added sugar, but not nearly as much as what you see in the grocery store variety. We will break down the nutrition information as we cook. And you can try this on your own and take my word for it. This is much superior. So let's get cooking. So for starters, we need to begin by preparing our beets. This is what I use as the replacement for sweetened dried cranberries or other dried fruit that you see in a lot of these deli salads. So since it's replacing that, we want to dice it into small pieces, roughly about the size of a dried cranberry. Once you have everything sliced up, you will coat the beets in about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. Add salt and pepper, depending on your preferences, and then roast these in a pretty hot 425-degree oven for 30 minutes. Sometimes I'll stir in between, so stirring at the 15-minute mark. Then once they are fully cooked, they will be sweet, soft, and chewy, and we'll let them cool down just a little bit until we mix them in with the rest of our ingredients. I'm using 2 pretty large beets, and it gives me about maybe just a little over 3 cups of finely diced beets. And also, I'll just take a second here to say thank you to everybody who is watching along. If you like this kind of video, please give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear your comments in the comments below. It would mean a lot for me if you subscribe to this channel, and stay tuned to the end to see the nutrition info for this recipe. While we get the beets started roasting in the oven, since that takes 30 minutes, now we're going to prepare all of the green vegetables. I like to start with a relatively small, moderate-sized head of broccoli, and I cut the stalks into very fine slivers. And then I break the florets into like really very small florets. We won't be particularly cooking, boiling, or steaming the broccoli. Instead, what I do is I bring my electric water kettle to a full boil, and then I fill my pot with boiled water, and I will steep the broccoli and the kale while the beets cook. So it's about like 20 minutes of steeping in hot water. And I find that this makes both the broccoli and the kale, it makes it soft enough to chew and like easily digest without like making it mushy or soggy, since I will keep this in my refrigerator throughout the week. In addition, the boiled water brings out like a sweetness and a brightness to the vegetables as well. You'll see I am going to pretty heavily season the water with salt, black pepper, and crushed red pepper flakes. I don't worry about having too much seasoning in the water, because when we strain it out, some of that salt and pepper will fade away down the drain. It's important to start the broccoli first, since it's a more robust vegetable and it can use longer time steeping in the hot water. But then I break down the kale. I have about 3 cups of kale, and I just take out the ribs, cut it into bite-sized pieces, and then I do save about 1 more cup of a more tender kale. I save that and put it in completely raw. And I do find that as the week goes on, having the raw kale along with the steamed kale, it just helps to preserve the food even longer. Keep it fresh, keep it crunchy, keep it crisp. I really do everything I can to avoid the soggy or mushy texture that I find in the grocery store version of this. For the sauce, I use a half lemon. I like the Meyer lemons. I feel like they're just much juicier and sweeter. So I'll juice it out, get the seeds out of there, and then I will add in honey and mustard. So I understand if somebody's following like a very strict vegan diet, you would want to remove the honey, maybe use a different sweetener or skip it altogether. But I use about a tablespoon of honey, about a teaspoon of mustard. And I find that this gives a very fresh, very flavorful dressing that ties together the sweetness and the bitterness of the vegetables that go into the mix. Another really important part of the process is to thoroughly drain out the excess water from your green vegetables. I just do that by tapping the strainer to jar out any loose droplets. I'll add a full bag of shredded carrots. Honestly, it is a little bit too much for the perfect balance in this salad, but I would rather just use them all instead of like throwing away some. So that's just how I end up doing the recipe. After about 30 minutes in the oven, the beets are fully cooked. They'll be soft, chewy. They will have reduced a little bit in size, and they will have their really signature sweetness. I just loosen them up on the parchment paper with my spatula to get them ready to mix in with the green and orange part of the salad. To mix everything together, I'll like layer the beets and then the green and orange salad. I'll spread everything out and I'll add that final 1 cup of raw kale. I really like to mix it by hand. Somehow it just gives me a good sense of the seasoning, like the salt and pepper ratio, the texture. It helps me make sure that everything is really even. Of course, I'll add 1 cup of cashews since it's a kale cashew salad. And I'll mix it up and set it aside in the fridge to eat for the rest of the week. And now that we're pretty much done with the full recipe, it's a good time to get into a breakdown of the nutritional information so that you kind of know exactly what you're getting when you make this recipe. So for starters, we have the same 1 cup serving size, and where the grocery store option gives you 200 calories, remembering that it has 20% your daily value of fat. The homemade variety from this recipe gives you 100 calories and only 4% daily value of fat. This homemade recipe is cholesterol free because we're only adding fat from cashews and from olive oil. There is basically the same amount of sodium, 6% in my recipe, 7% in the store recipe. My recipe is higher in carbohydrates, higher in fiber, also higher in total sugar, but lower in added sugar. So for me, we're getting 6% carbohydrates in comparison to 4% from the grocery store. We're getting 11% fiber in comparison to 7% from the grocery store. And the grocery store option has 6 grams of sugar with 6% of your daily value of added sugar. And if you make my recipe at home, you will have 9 grams of sugar. A lot of that is coming from the vegetables though, the beets, the carrots, and of course also the honey. And finally, my recipe has just a few more percent of calcium, iron, and potassium than you would get from the store. So once you try this recipe of cashew kale salad, you'll know right where to put the grocery store deli fresh snack.